to Beers with Chad. Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith here. Another episode of Beers with Chad number 11. I'm here on a beautiful spring day in Costa Mesa, California, Orange County. And I figured since it's such a nice day here, fix myself up a little skinny margarita because I'm concerned with health, physique, aesthetics. No, not really any of those things, just because skinny margarita is better than a margarita with a mix and all that stuff. So all this is equal parts Don Julio tequila, fresh lime juice squeezed from a lime tree right there in my backyard, and a squirt of agave nectar. So cheers. And if you don't like skinny margaritas, you're probably lying to yourself. So embrace the wonderfulness that they are. This week's episodes of The Jug Life and Beers with Chad are brought to you by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire, posting your jobs to hundreds of job boards at once, and guaranteed to find you a qualified candidate in one day. And you can visit ziprecruiter.com/juglife to see what they're all about and to support the show. So if you haven't checked out our regular episode of The Jug Life yet for this week, it is a very good one, I think. Maybe I'm biased, but it's back from when we were in New York for a couple days, and New York and New Jersey, and we visited with Mike Guadango. And Mike Guadango, if you go back far enough in the fitness and lifting and internet fitness game, you may remember Mike Guadango as the asshole. And Mike was the asshole at DeFranco's gym and part of the Strong documentary, and hitting these crazy box jumps. And it was crazy. It was interesting to talk with Joe and Mike when we were back there, and it was only like 2006, 2007, 2008 when they were getting really big and well known, but it seemed like so long ago. 10 years, I guess, is fairly long, but just a lot of stuff has happened since then. Feels like almost a lifetime ago, and it was great to talk with Mike. He's someone I've stayed in contact. He's written some articles for JTSstrength.com. Just someone that I have a lot of respect for as a coach, because he takes a full holistic approach to what he's doing. He wants to understand every aspect of the athlete's preparedness, from field-based speed power work to the weight room, mobility, rehab, nutrition, everything. And he and I have a lot of the same influences. He came up training under Joe DeFranco. Joe was one of my biggest influences early on in Juggernaut, reading all his articles, going out there to visit him. And then Mike went out and interned with James Smith and Buddy Morris at the University of Pittsburgh, and I had the good fortune to employ James for a year here at Juggernaut, and I would say he's the person who influenced my coaching and understanding of training the most. As well as a lot of track and field based coaches, speaking for Mike and myself, people like Charlie Francis, Dan Paff, and Mike just shares a lot of great information about his development as a coach, his long hours as an intern at Pitt, his hunger for knowledge in all of that, and not to sound like an old guy sitting on my porch telling kids to get off my lawn right now, but kids these days, and I'm almost 32 years old, but kids these days, they got it easy. There's so much information available at just a few keystrokes away, whether it's websites like ours and YouTube and lots of other great websites out there. But when that wasn't as prevalent, you had to go and talk to people. And I think because so much information is so easy to access now, it's made people less willing, less open to the idea of unpaid internships, to go out and hustle for that and work really long hours and buy coaches coffee and whatever you need to do to get some face time with them and be able to get to talk with him and ask him questions. And Mike went through all of that, and he also shares some great insights on the current state of strength and conditioning, the idea of performance, a like high performance director or program manager, as well as talking about what he does with NFL and MLB players that he works with at his gym, Freak Strength in Oakland, New Jersey. So go check that out with Mike Guidango. He looks like a homeless man, but very, very bright coach. Very good episode. Take a little sip here. That's good. It's just refreshing. So this past weekend was the Kern U.S. Open, the biggest money powerlifting meet there is in the whole world. $250,000 on the line, put up by the meet director Gracie, not Gracie V anymore, Gracie Davis, and run down there in San Diego, California. So fantastic meet, a lot of good things, maybe some things to be improved, and I'll get into that now. So first off, I'll talk about my guys at the U.S. Open. I was there coaching on Sunday. If I had the good fortune to meet any of you, thanks for coming up and saying hi. If you were there and you saw me and you didn't say hi, what the hell? Please come up and do that. If you listen to the shows and watch the YouTube, I always like to meet the fans, which is actually kind of odd to say. But I had two guys compete there, Andy Huang, that huge Asian guy, and Brandon Allen, and pretty strong performances for both of them. Andy was his first meet ever in wraps. He went 871 in the squat, that's 395 kilos, benched 227, 501, and deadlifted 385, 848 pounds. And then he won the 125 kilo class, the 275s, and then Brandon went 975 in the squat, 442 kilos. He benched 257.5 kilos, 567 pounds, and deadlifted 382.5 kilos, 843 pounds. And Brandon took first in the super heavies and second overall for the whole meet. It was, like I said, Andy's first meet in wraps, so that's a guaranteed total PR. He also deadlifted a small PR and then missed what would have been a bit bigger one just at his knees, or maybe just past his knees on his third attempt. But I was very happy with the way that Andy competed. He's a very composed guy, and it's good to watch him do his thing there. He had a bit of a setback about 3 weeks out or so. He got an infection, maybe like a staph infection in his shin, had to go to the emergency room for that, do all that kind of stuff that it involves having getting an infection, and that's just not what you want 3 weeks out from one of the biggest meets that there are. Sorry about the siren in the background. Shit's getting real in Costa Mesa right now. Sorry about that. And it's annoying. But Andy went out there and battled. We had to make some adjustments, obviously, to his training, and the type of fatigue that is generated from an infection in your body trying to fight that stuff off. That's just a bit harder to quantify for me. I understand pretty well how fatigue is generated and then decayed from lifting weights and other kind of physical activities like that, and even some to understand the fatigue around illness. But this infection stuff, it was just tricky. So we had to rewrite the last couple weeks of his training plan and make some adjustments. So I'm pretty happy to come away with some solid lifting and a deadlift PR for Andy and a win in his weight class. Now Brandon had phenomenal training cycle. One of the best training cycles I've ever had someone have. Really no missed lifts, just strong all the way. If you've watched our Jug Life episode with Brandon, which hopefully you have, he talks about some of his health problems over the last year and a half. Some injuries, working around these, battling through them, staying tough mentally, and all that stuff. LA Fit Expo was his first meet in quite some time, and he came back and came back and had a very strong performance, though we were conservative. And it was all just kind of build positive momentum to set himself up for the U.S. Open. And he squatted huge weights and squatted huge in training, 959, benched 573 in training, and I think pulled 843. And everyone goes into a meet like U.S. Open with the best case scenario on their mind. 9 for 9, American records, PRs, all this kind of stuff. And in some ways, I know that Brandon is disappointed with his performance. Again, it was 975, 567, 843. But there is so many positives to take away from him. Powerlifting is a sport. It's about beating the people that you're lifting against, and Brandon did that. He beat all the super heavyweights. Incredibly competitive class. J.P. Price, Rob Philippus, Jake Johns. A lot of strong people in there, and he battled through adversity in the meet, and to watch him lift and the way that it all went down. So he ended up missing his opening squat on depth, which was a surprising call to me. I would have figured it was going to be 2-1 good lift, but it was 1-2, not a good lift. And for the people watching the live stream or watching there at the meet, maybe some inconsistent judging throughout the day, a lot of surprising calls over the weekend for people. But no lift, two reds. Then as a coach, and where I have to do the most coaching is usually in the USAPL and IPF with Marissa and Kristen, where it's just more kind of stacked competition, and I'll get into that a bit more. But normally with a missed lift, I would basically never go up. I would never have the athlete go up. And before I could say anything to the person taking the attempts, or taking the next attempt, Brandon told them the next attempt 875, which was our plan, and he just walked over there and told it to him, and I was like, all right, he's the one lifting the weights, so I'll let him do what he wants there. He puts in 875, goes up, buries it, and doesn't come up at all, because he really buried it, like 3 or 4 inches below parallel, kind of buried it, got way back on his heels. Just not a good lift. And so now we're sitting 2 missed squats, 975, repeating 975, got to make it to stay in the meet. Goes in there, stays composed, makes the lift. It looked pretty much identical to me depth-wise to the first one. I don't know if that means that it shouldn't have been good or if the first one should have been good. In my opinion, the first one was a good lift from where I was standing. So I was a bit surprised that didn't hold up. But ends up 1 for 3 in the squat, but essentially was the same as being 2 for 3 because he made what our planned second attempt was. Then JP, had a big opener, 959, and then missed 1,003. And if you saw the videos, there was this crazy, walkout. He looked like he was trying to moonwalk out of the rack, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a little bit. But JP was in the lead, Brandon was actually in the lead. He had the biggest squat of the whole thing, so we knew he was in a very good place because he's a much stronger deadlifter than JP. So we go into the bench, and as Brandon was warming up, he was talking about his pecs feeling really, really tight and not feeling great there. And so we're kind of thinking, okay, well, let's see what happens. Just kind of take the opener and we'll adjust from there if needed. Makes the opener solid. It was 540. Then jumped up. Normal plan would have been to go to 573. Went to 567. It looked a little harder than planned. Made that solid lift, but challenging for sure. So we went to 579 rather than the plan, or 578 rather than the planned 584 to 589, and came up with it. Very, very challenging lift. Got it turned down. the judges did this when I asked them why he didn't make it. I don't know that this is in the rule book, but they seem to say that it was a downward motion. And in my opinion, that's a misapplication of the downward motion rule, as the downward motion refers to the middle of the bar moving downward, and I don't believe that Brandon's bar ever did that. They also use the phrase ratcheting the bar up, which I don't know. I don't know if ratcheting the bar up is in the rule book, but anyways, he missed that third lift, so 2 for 3 on the bench. So now going in the deadlift, it looks like we're solid, in the lead for the super heavyweights. From the earlier flights, we saw that Andrew Herbert, a very, very strong lifter, squatted a world record, awesome guy, was in the Wilks lead there. We knew Yuri Belkin obviously was, Yuri Belkin was in the lead. Andrew Herbert was in second at 589. So we knew that Brandon, with his second planned deadlift, should go over 600 Wilks. And it was going to be kind of Brandon and Larry Wheels battling for second place, with a very outside shot in my mind of Brandon going for the win, as Yuri Belkin had only gone 1 for 3 in the deadlift and posted a 611.2 Wilks. So he goes in 804, 365 kilo opener, smokes it. Second attempt, 843, 382.5 kilos, smokes it. Mind you, Brandon's meet deadlift PR at this point was 821 pounds. Now that's 372 kilos. So already a 10 kilo PR on his second attempt. He made massive, massive progress in the deadlift, and a lot of that is thanks to Andy Huang, who's helped him with his technique. And I still wouldn't say that Brandon has good deadlift technique, but he has much better deadlift technique than he used to have, which I joke about with him, and it was rough. He would just grab the bar, and he's just really a strong as shit grizzly bear of a man, and would rip it up, but not lifting these kind of poundages. And then so he makes the 843. We've got the 600 Wilks. We know we got second place locked in, and I give him two options, and it's his decision. He's the one lifting the weights ultimately. I tell him, we can take a 390 kilo lift, so 860 pounds for a 2402 total, or we could take 402 kilos, 402.5 kilos, 887 pounds for the win to make a 611.8 Wilks and win $40,000. And Brandon really, without any hesitation, says, yeah, we're going for the win. I'd feel stupid if I pulled 860 and it was fast. So we put this number in. I go and tell him, change the deadlift, 402.5 kilos, 887 pounds. Again, Brandon's PR deadlift, 821 pounds coming into this meet. The heaviest he's ever done, once in training, once in competition, 843 pounds. Now we're going for 887. 887. A 20 kilo jump, a 20 kilo lifetime PR. And before, 15 minutes previous to this, what would have been a 66 pound, a 30 kilo meet PR. I've never called a 30 kilo meet PR for someone in a meet, especially not after they just made a PR, especially not at one of the biggest meets in the world, especially not for one of the strongest lifters in the world, who's very experienced. So this was something that, as a coach, I was fighting against my own coaching common sense in this, and he wanted to do it, and it's his decision. So I was like, all right, let's put it on there, and trying to have as much faith in him as possible, because he smoked 843, and he smoked it in training, he smoked it at the meet. But Brandon, similarly to the way that I deadlift, a lot of times will have deadlifts that come off the ground very fast and then come to a very fast stop just short of lockout. And that's deals with being a man of advanced size and your stomach running into your legs and it kind of throwing off your hip rotation in the start position. So he gets up there, and all of me as his coach and a fan of him, see him grab the bar, and I'm thinking, come on, buddy, let's make it happen. But the logical, rational side of me is thinking like, it's probably going to come off the ground like 5 or 6 inches, and then stop. And then he pulled it, and then it just came up very fast and got right to lockout, and he lost it at lockout. Really after it was locked out, I think, but before a down signal, and lost his grip and tore his hand, and his hand was bleeding, and as he said in his Instagram story, as he was driving home back to Vegas, he dropped $30,000. So he ends up walking away with second place, 600 point something. Wilks, $11,000 between the Wilks and the weight class, and 2385 total. So an 82 pound, so 37.5 kilo total PR. And I think anyone is going to be really happy with a 37.5 kilo total PR. But when you're so close to so much more, it's hard to feel satisfied with that. But very proud of Brandon. He's overcome a lot of adversity in his training, overcame a lot of adversity in the meet. So Brandon and Andy, proud of both of you guys. Proud to be your coach. Team CWS taking care of business there. Great showing for these guys. Other incredible performances. First and foremost, CC Holcomb, Shakira Holcomb, the highest Wilks of all time, male or female. Just a virtuoso performance, 8 for 8. She 8 for 8 with more in the tank, and I got to see her lift in person at the LA Fit Expo, which really was just kind of a tune-up training day for her, and she was crushing weights there. And she's a phenom, very young. She's going to make a lot of huge lifts over the next several years. So congrats to her and her coach. Yuri Belkin, the overall men's winner of the weekend. He's better at powerlifting than everyone else is right now. With Milanichev was in attendance but injured. I think Belkin missed his first squat, made his second, passed his third, made 3 benches, 240 kilo bench, 529 pounds for a guy who weighed in at 105, 231, and isn't an overly muscular kind of guy. And then, he only made 1 deadlift, but it was 893 pounds as opener. So, he's a phenom. For the Phil, who was asking, Steph Cohen got third place, or no, second or third place. Second place, I think, with a 642. CC's very far ahead of any other female lifter. Like, it's not even close. Radoslav Petkov, huge performance. 55 kilo total PR in the 75 kilo class to win the lightweights, win the $40,000 in the lightweights, to break his own world record by 55 kilos. As I mentioned, Steffi Cohen, very strong lifting, big deadlift PR, meet deadlift PR for her. Those are the ones that count. Total PR, world records, the first time that she's pulled over 500 in competition. So congratulations to her. Congratulations to Larry Wheels, just a freak of all freaks. Right, 595 pound or 595 Wilks, 2290 total in sleeves, weighed in barely over 275, so he could take a shot at the 308 world record. Didn't have his best day or what he was hoping for, as most people didn't, but was still right there for the biggest Wilks of the whole meet. A lot of great lifting, men, women, lightweight, heavyweight, all that stuff. Very, very impressive stuff. A lot of talk about the equipment going on. Whether it was the walkouts, like I mentioned, JP Price really struggling with his walkout with 455 kilos, 1,003 pounds. Whether it was People losing their grip on the deadlifts, talking about, is that the bar? Bar whip in the bench, or sorry, bar whip in the squat. I wasn't lifting. I've never they were using the Kabuki bars. I know they had to change the bar for the last flight of deadlifts. The heavyweight men, I think the 308s and super heavy guys, they had to change the bar because in the previous flight, Yuri Belkin broke the bar when he dropped one of these deadlifts at 925 pounds. So they changed the bar. I'm not sure what brand it was that they changed it to. I know JP Price commented to us that the bar wasn't rotating very well. So it definitely presented some problems. I can't speak. I didn't feel the bar on my back, the Kabuki bar. I didn't feel that bar on my hands. The first thing that was very apparent was the stage and the platform was not great. Lifting on a temporary stage like that, if you're squatting 400 pounds, maybe it's one thing. When you're squatting 400 kilos or 450 kilos and you're a 350, 400 pound person, that lack of stability is really going to manifest. And we saw that with JP Price trying to walk out the squat, a guy who's just super solid all the time, very strong walkouts, to have to take 7-8 steps to be able to control the weight and barely even be able to control it then, I think is very telling about it. Rob Philippus had one where he caught his heel or something trying to back out of the rack and almost went down with that. I don't know if bar whip was contributing to that one way or the other. What I would say in regards to the bar is that if you're gonna whatever bar you have on the platform, this isn't a local meet. This is the biggest, most prestigious meet in the world with the most prize money. So put the exact same bars in the back. If there's five platforms in the back, you need to have 5 identical bars. You need to have 5 identical setups, identical to what's on the platform. I've had the good fortune to compete 4 times in Australia, and my friend Imad Nayef, who's really the man who makes it happen for these big meets like Big Dogs and Pro Raw in Australia, was there kind of checking the scene out, and I don't think that he was particularly impressed with the setup, and that's something that I really have taken away from those meets in Australia. It's very nice to have identical equipment in the warm-up room as you do on the platform. If it's a local meet or whatever, local meet, people are going to warm up with bumpers. They're going to do what needs to be done. The last local meet I did, I left the bar I warmed up with on the squat permanently bent. We had to put 2 collars on it. It was flexing so much in the rack to keep the weights from sliding off. But this isn't a local meet. This is $250,000 U.S. Open, so get the same stuff in the back and the front. Everyone's squatting with the same bar, so once you're in the competition, it is what it is. But you figure 90% of those lifters probably train on a Texas squat bar or Texas power bar. So put a Texas squat bar or a Texas power bar out there. I'm not one to complain about equipment. I've trained at CrossFit gyms and lifted big weights, trained in powerlifting gyms, lifted big weights. I've seen people who are supposed to be some of the best lifters in the world complain about equipment, well, bar's too whippy, that's why I miss, kind of thing at big meets, and I don't put a lot of stock in that, but you want to make the best situation possible for the lifters. So, same equipment in the front and in the back as on the platform. Another really nice thing that Big Dogs does is they have designated loaders in the back, and you just give them your warm-ups, and they load the bar for you and spot you, which really helps cut down how congested it gets in the back. You don't have so many people wandering around back there. It's just a smoother, more athlete-friendly process. Another very important thing, have a live stream playing in the back. Have multiple big screens where you can see the scoreboard so you can know how many lifts out you are, rather than having to walk around and see the other, see the scoreboard in the front, see if people are making lifts, missing lifts, trying to get a feel for the judging, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, make it easier on the lifter. If you're running a professional meet, approach it very professionally. So, you know, go watch Big Dogs, watch Pro Raw, see how they do things. Big warm-up rooms, designated loaders, identical equipment in the front and the back. You know, to not have a backup bar in a deadlift when one breaks, like that kind of stuff can't happen. I said I can't speak to the quality of the bars. I wasn't lifting them. I know the knurling on the squat bar, just when I kind of ducked under and felt it on my back a little bit, was very aggressive. You know, that's all well and good. I'm not even a huge fan of the squat. You know, so in the IPF 29 millimeter bar, Alico, Rogue Ohio bar, or whatever. You know, I've seen Blaine Sumner walk out 500 kilos on a 29 millimeter Rogue Ohio power bar on a temporary stage, and yeah, he wasn't falling over. He had very compact walkout and crushed the squat. That's 29 millimeter bar. These 32 millimeter squat bar is supposed to offer extra stability. I don't know that it actually does that much. Like I've squatted 410, 915 pounds, or sorry, 415, 915 pounds on an Alico bar. I've gone up to 400 kilos on a Texas Power Bar, which is only 28 millimeters or 28 and a half millimeters. But they're shorter between the collars. It almost seems to me like the extra distance between the collars negates the extra thickness of the squat bar. At the meets I've done in Australia, we use a Sportcraft, which is a 35 millimeter bar, and it seems to me to be a little bit shorter between the collars than a Texas Power Bar or the Kabuki bar. Yeah, it's more accommodating to people with inflexible shoulders, but if Ray Williams can get his hands between the collars of an Ohio Power Bar, everyone else should be able to as well. You know, when I was at my peak lifting, I weighed 375 pounds, and I could get my hands between the collars. So do a little bit of shoulder mobility, have a shorter bar, you know, maybe a shorter 32 millimeter bar, and you're not going to have to worry about it flexing and whipping and doing all that stuff. Yeah, I saw someone commenting about the judging. It did seem inconsistent. I didn't watch every single lift. I watched my guys lift and maybe a couple of the other attempts here and there, but not all of them. So I don't want to comment on that. I've been to a lot of USPA meets, and I think the judging is overall good, but it did seem like there was a lot of inconsistencies. I talked about Brandon's third bench. I thought that was a good lift. I thought his opening squat was good. They didn't. They're the ones whose opinion counts on that. Other big takeaway from the U.S. Open was about lift making. And I told Brandon and Andy going in, our goal is number 1, make lifts. Number 2, placing. Number 3, money and records. Records. Placing and money go hand in hand. It's really hard to win meets when you don't make lifts. And trying to take your ideal attempts, in terms of what you went into the meet thinking, this is what I want to make, being so rigid in that and not taking what the day gives you may make it very hard to make lifts. Brandon went 5 for 9. Yuri Belkin went 5 for 8. And they're first and second, so maybe I'm working against my opinion here, but they made more lifts than the other guys. And as I kind of get to walk in both worlds, having competed in the USPA, the SPF, GPA, Pro Raw, Big Dogs, coached in a lot of untested federations, as well as coaching in the USAPL and at IPF Worlds, there's one thing that the untested lifters could really learn from the USAPL and IPF lifters, and that's about making lifts. Those top USAPL IPF lifters, for the most part, with the exception of CC Holcomb, who went 8 for 8, and Radoslav Petkov, who I think went 8 for 9, they're generally better lift makers, and I think that stems from a couple things. One, the competition for the most part is much more stiff. USAPL nationals, Kristen had 5 girls over 500 Wilks, 5 girls who could have won worlds in her weight class. You can't miss lifts, you can't pick attempts wrong and be successful there. Marissa, when we had to come back from 13 kilos down at Worlds last year, we couldn't miss lifts. We couldn't pick the wrong numbers when it's just so close. And I think this is true too for female lifters, smaller weight class male lifters, where 2.5 kilos makes a bigger difference. So that competition drives better attempt selection, and if you want to be successful, making 7, 8, 9 lifts. I think that there's probably a greater attention to detail in technique, in all the aspects of the preparation among a lot of the IPF affiliate lifters, and that some of that may be linked to drugs. That drugs give a leeway where you don't have to perfect all of the smaller aspects of technique and the smaller aspects of your mental preparation and execution, because it covers, it can cover some of those problems up. There were lifters that I saw lift on Saturday on the live stream and Sunday in person that are just kind of like, oh, like they're here, they're doing that at one of the biggest meets in the world. Like it looks like stuff I'd see people do technically and tactically in their first or second meet, not at this huge meet. And it's very, very rare that I see that at, in the primetime session at the USAPL, and certainly at IPF Worlds. Everyone is about as professional as possible. And then to extend that point about drugs, maybe drugs create a leeway to have less attention to detail, but what they also do is they complicate the peaking process in a way. You might hear this and think that it simplifies it, because yes, it helps you hold fitness longer and decay fatigue faster, and it does simplify it from that standpoint. But where it complicates it is it's another variable, and in a lot of ways a bit of an unknown variable, because your body's not going to respond to them identically every time, and you might not be getting identical shit every time to use. So it might be helping you more or less, and when it comes, when all the aspects of peaking, the fitness fatigue relationship, kind of with this nitro boost of steroids on top of it come in, you might be a lot stronger than you were in training. Like it might be a pretty profound effect. It might be 5 kilos or 10 kilos or something, feeling better than what you thought, and once once you've had that experience, the next time it might not help as much, and that makes it a lot more challenging to go in picking the right openers, and you get these different numbers in your head, and it just affects your attempt selection. So that's something to think about as well. But overall, I think a lot of improvements were made for the U.S. Open this year compared to last year. Last year I made a long Facebook post, which I don't know if the meet directors were that enthused about, with some of my constructive criticisms of things I think they could have done better. They went to a free live stream, that's good. They let people in the crowd film with their phones, that's good. Still not from the stage, and that's understandable and their prerogative to do. They changed the division of the weight classes, which was a good thing. Last year it was the 220s and the 198s and up that were the heavyweights, and that's just too light to be heavyweights, and they fixed that this year and made it 220s and up. I might still even go one further to the 242s and up, just because those 42s, 75s, and supers particularly, and 308s are all just so stacked. I think a bit deeper with talent than the lighter weight classes are. But I think the equipment stuff can be addressed, maybe some consistency in the judging, but it's tough, and people people can watch the video over and over on their phone and make the right call. It's much tougher to do that in real time. So that was the US Open. very proud of my guys, Andy and Brandon. Looking forward to doing it again next year. My thing of the week, two things of the week, and these are just stuff that I like this week, whether it's movies, TV shows, podcasts, music, anything. I have two things of the week. One is something for you all to think about with your training, and I want to encourage you to talk your technique. As I've been training jiu-jitsu for the last several months, once a week I do a private lesson with my coach, Brent Littell, and something that Professor Brent has me do is after he teaches me the techniques for the day and we drill those, at the end of the session, I have to talk through the technique and explain what I'm doing step by step as I do it, and then after that, I write it in the notes in my phone step by step. So I get really 4 places of emphasis. I get him telling it to me, I get doing it, I get explaining it myself while doing it, and then I also get writing it down. And that's helped me memorize the stuff better and understand it better. So I would challenge you to weightlifting, powerlifting, strongman, whatever it is, to go through on a piece of paper on your computer and write down each step of the technique and explain it as in-depthly as you can. And I think you'll find that it gives you a much better understanding of what you're doing, and maybe you'll find one of the steps that you don't really have a good explanation for, and maybe you're not actually sure what you're doing at that phase of the lift. So I would encourage you to try that out, to talk your technique or to write it down. Both of them are going to be really effective, and effective tools for those of you who are coaches to explain, to help your athletes understand their technique better. The other thing of the week is The Americans on FX. Wednesday night, it'll be coming on in a couple hours. It's the final season of The Americans, which is a show about a husband and wife played by some guy and Carrie Russell, Felicity, you may know her as, and they're the deepest of deep cover Russian spies in the 80s Cold War America, and it's excellent. I think there's only like 3 or 4 episodes left, and yeah, I got started on the show probably last year, and watched it all. I think I had to buy them all on iTunes and watch it. I'm not sure if it's on Netflix, but check it out. Really, really well done show. Only a couple episodes left. Very, very exciting. I'm interested to see what happens there. Beyond that, this was Beers with Chad. It's a bonus episode to the Jug Life. Would really appreciate you go on iTunes, give us a 5-star review, write us something funny or nice, like Ski Addict 78, who says, "I always laugh, I never cry, and I learn something new during every episode, so thank you to Ski Addict 78. Shoot me an email, chad@jtsstrength.com. We'll send you a gift card or t-shirt or something. You can find Beers with Chad and the Jug Life on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and thejuglife.com. Subscribe to our YouTube, where we post 3 new videos a week, and maybe soon it's going to even be more than 3. If you're interested in coaching for powerlifting, weightlifting, strongman, super total, or power building, visit juggernautcoaching.com. Whether you're a beginner or advanced, we've got stuff to help you out. Also make sure to check out our ebooks, including my new squat manual. I'll also be having a bench manual and deadlift manual in the coming months, plus our other books, Scientific Principles of Strength Training and Thoughtful Pursuit of Strength, Weightlifting Technique Triad, Fuerza. Tons of good info that you can find at store.jtsstrength.com. Upcoming events, June 9th at Dynasty Gym. I will be in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, teaching you how to squat, bench, and deadlift better. Then June 22nd and June 23rd, Max and I will be in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area on the 22nd at Arlington Strength, and at the 23rd at D-Town CrossFit, and we'll be doing a free squat clinic and then a free snatch clinic. Squat clinic at Arlington Strength, snatch clinic at D-Town CrossFit, and then recording an episode of the Jug Life Live, which is really just kind of a little bit of informal lecture with Q&A, hang out, have some laughs, make up some fake lifestyle brands, and it's a good time. So this was Beers with Chad. Check out those events, check out the coaching, subscribe to the podcast, all that good stuff. I'll see you next week.